So today I'm gonna show you how to forge a Christmas tree. It's a level 1 project, but I also gonna talk about level 2 and level 3. So our goals in this project is manage the basic techniques. We are gonna use a bunch of basic techniques that are gonna carry us through all the project. But all these basic techniques are techniques we are going to use in all our life as blacksmiths, so they are very important. I also want to have a control in the material and also control in modeling. We want to create the right shape, so when we transform this shape, we are going to have enough material to get the project done in the right way. I also want to work in different texture. This is a free project. We can create different finish Christmas tree. So I want to play a little with the shapes. I want to play a little with the texture, and also choose different hammers, like a cross pin hammer, a ball pin hammer, things like that to create the shape we want. I also want to introduce the concept of steps for production, so we can reproduce the techniques, reproduce the steps, and get many pieces with the same shape. So when we are, for example, level 2 or level 3, I'm gonna guess we are gonna have a blacksmith shop. We want to run a business. So it's important to have something we can repeat. We can save time, save process to get a right piece that we can sell many times. So we are not going to try to make only one piece that we cannot copy. We want to make a profit. So many people maybe want the same piece. So we need to find a way to get the technique, be able to get repeats many times. So the objective of this project, as I said, this is a level 1, but I want to also introduce for level 2 or level 3, we are going to make some change in how we are going to work, so we can aim also these 2 levels. Something that for me is very important for level 1 is get fun. If we try to make something that is super difficult, we are going to have problems, and maybe that problems can be so tricky to solve that we want to stop blacksmith. So this is a very easy project that we can carry without problem, and I have made the steps so it's easy to reproduce. So we are gonna get fun with the techniques. We are gonna try different ways to solve it. We can also use this project to make, instead of a tree, we can make a wizard, a face, a hat, whatever we can create with this. The tools we are going to use is a hammer between 500 grams or 1.5 kilo, around that. And we want to have a cutting tool for the hardy hole. I think for level 1, it's going to be more tricky if we have a cutting tool that we need to carry in our hand. So I prefer to have in the anvil, so we can take out when we don't need it and put it again when we need it. Of course, we need the anvil and the forge. We can have a rule or something to take the measures. They are not going to be super important because it's a little free, the size, but we are going to use around 100 millimeters of a round bar, 12 millimeters, so 4.5 inch round bar. I think it's enough material to have time to work in. It's not super small, so we are not going to have problems with the heat. And it's not big enough to need to work a lot on the piece and not make something. So I want something that we can go around super fast, but we have enough time to get on the techniques. About the preforms, when we forge, we want to follow steps. These steps are called preforms. The preforms in this project are going to bring us to different shapes that are going to move the material to have enough material to get the shape. If we don't follow steps or we don't make the right preform, we are gonna need to modeling the piece a lot to get the material where we want. So sometimes we can have too much material or too less. And then when we try to finish the product, we don't have enough and we have a problem. So with the preforms, we are gonna solve that because we are gonna have the right shapes. In the end, I'm gonna show a small video trying to follow different steps and what the problems are with those steps. About the volume is something related with the heat. We want to reduce the volume of the piece, so we need to work less. We are gonna have less material to hammer in, so we are gonna go faster, but also we are gonna pay more attention in details and not in hammer strong. So we are gonna start hammering very strong and go light, but go high in precision. So in this way, we are gonna practice many different ways to hammer, very hard, very light, not very precise, very precise. We are gonna try to be efficient with the work, so we don't need to worry a lot about the piece. Also, when we have less material, less volume, the piece is gonna heat faster, so we don't need to wait a lot in the fire. About the heat, we are gonna proceed in the same way. We are gonna start with a big fire. If you use coal or charcoal, normally I forge with charcoal. If you have a gas forge, you're gonna have the same heat all the time or almost the same heat. But with the fire with coal or charcoal, we are gonna start with the big fire because we have more material, but we are not gonna need a lot of material at the end. So for example, if you're running a blacksmith shop, you want to start with the right amount of charcoal, but at the end of the day, you want to have nothing. In that way, you don't lost material or charcoal, and you don't lose money, because all the charcoal you burn, you need to use it, otherwise it's money you lost. So we are gonna start with the big fire, going down with the amount of heat we need. Also in that way, we are not gonna burn the steel, because if we don't have enough experience forging with charcoal or coal, maybe it's gonna be too hot, we can burn the steel, because the piece is gonna get smaller and smaller, so it's gonna hit super fast, and we are gonna need to have more attention. If we end with a small fire, we are not gonna need to worry a lot about that. About the working area, I want to have enough space to move around. The anvil is a tool we are gonna work all around, not just from one side. In the video, you're gonna see me forging in the other side of the anvil. That's because I need that position for the video. But normally, because I'm left-hander, the position I have with the anvil related with the forge is the right one, but I'm gonna forge from the other side for the video. I want to have water, not in the middle of the working area, but just in one side, so I can quench the piece of myself if I have an accident. So I need to think about how I can react if something wrong happens. Also, I want to have a very clear space, and I want to have my tools in the right place when I need it. And if I don't need it, I'm gonna take it out and move it in another place, so it's not in the middle of my work. About the material handling, because this is a level 1, I think it's better to use a long piece of iron and not tongs. It's gonna be more easy. Maybe we don't have enough tools because we are starting as a blacksmith, so I think if you can hold it with the hand, it's gonna be better. But if you have a tongue for round bars, I think it's also great. Of course, if you are level 2 or level 3, you're gonna have some, because you are gonna make it in through the classes. So you can also use a tongue. In the video, I'm gonna use the tongue, but you can also not use it. Also, if I have enough material, I can repeat the technique and make many Christmas trees so I can practice more. With the details and the strength, we are gonna go the same as the volume and the heat. We are gonna decrease the strength. I hit the piece. We are gonna go high in precision. I'm gonna also want to work super clean and try to get practice in these basic techniques because we are gonna do it a lot. For example, making a square bar, making a square point is something you use for my knife, for my tools, and many other projects. So all the basic techniques are related with more complicated designs. We are gonna run these steps. We are gonna start with the round bar and make a square point. We are gonna start with a very short square point and make it longer. Then we are gonna make it round. Then we are gonna open the base of the tree using the crosspin hammer. And then we are gonna bend and make the scroll and the hook. We can also put the texture between these steps. And then we are gonna cut the bar. About the hammer position, we are gonna try to put the bar just when the round part of the flat face in the anvil starts. We are gonna get the right angle, and then we are gonna hammer with the center of the hammer in the end of the bar, as you can see here. And we need to put also an angle in the hammer, because I have seen many times people hammer more flat and you create a very long square point that you cannot control very much. Here we have a close look. So the center of the hammer just in the end of the bar, and we are gonna take care that we don't push the bar outside the anvil or to inside the anvil, because we have the risk of hammer with the hammer the anvil, and that's something we don't want. So once we make the square point, we are gonna hammer from one side, then we are gonna rotate 90 degrees and hammer again. And we are gonna try to practice this. We are gonna move material, but also heat. The anvil is normally very cold, so it's gonna take all the heat from the piece. So we want to keep moving the piece so it doesn't get cold. So we are gonna stop around 100 millimeters, so 4-inch, and we are gonna get 40% longer. That's about the material we are gonna need. So now I'm gonna share the video. Can you see the video? Yeah.
Good.
So I'm gonna look for the angle and hammer. I'm using the tongue as a guide about where is my 90 degrees, so I don't make a diamond shape. As you can see, I hammer more strong now. Once I have made the square point, I'm gonna make it longer. Of course, I can use also the horn to work faster because I need to make it longer. But then I need to clean all the work. It's also very important to practice to turn the piece, as you can see with the hand and the tongue. This work, we need to practice a lot. I'm gonna show in a moment how to do it. So here we have a close view. And now for level 2 and level 3, we can practice go faster and try to coordinate very well. You can also see I hold in the hammer very light. I try to clean a little and try to make everything straight. So in the next step, I don't need to correct anything. So I have there. So once we have the square point, I'm gonna aim the right angles to make 8 sides, then 16, 32. Of course, in some point, we are not gonna be able to count it. So something I'm gonna do next to that is start to turn the piece and hammer very, very light. In this way, I'm gonna make a lot of small faces and it's gonna look more and more round. Of course, it's gonna get a little longer also. So now we go again to the video. This is something very important. Every time I go again to the forge and I leave the piece there, I'm gonna clean the anvil. In which way? I prefer to use my hand and pass my hand through all the face of the anvil. In that way, all the scales are gonna go down to the floor, because I have seen many people that blows the anvil and then all the scales are gonna fly, and we can break that scales and it's gonna create problems in the lamps in the future. So we are gonna try to put everything in the floor. Also, having a magnet close to the anvil helps a lot. In my case, I have one just behind the anvil, so you can see it with the handle. And that's also gonna help to collect the scales and prevent to fly in the air. So I'm gonna look for this angle and hammer all the length. And then I'm gonna choose the other side and do the same. As you can see, I hammer in more strength when I got close to the round and very light when I go to the end, because I have less material, so it's gonna be more easy to damage the piece. Always everything straight, and I'm gonna hit it again and start to turn the piece. I just choose half of the bar. The other half is gonna be working from the anvil. It's also very important we control the height of the hand. You can see sometimes the tip is going up, and that's because I have the hand too high. So we need to take a look on the piece and control the hand little high, little low. So then I don't need to use time to correct that. Here I will have a close view. So now we are gonna make the next step. So we are gonna use the crosspin hammer to open the tree. We need to hammer first with the flat side of the hammer to get a flat surface, so we can use the crosspin hammer. And we can choose many ways to open the Christmas tree. We can hammer at 90 degrees from the length of the bar and open all this piece, or we can also turn the hammer and make it more round. We are gonna leave around 20 millimeters, 20 millimeters or 3/4 in the end. That's around the material we are gonna left to be the base of tree. But we are not gonna hammer like half in, half out. We're just gonna use the crosspin hammer on the face of the anvil, but we are gonna get anyways the result because we are making the piece thinner in this direction. So of course, the rest is gonna keep the 12 millimeters. Here we can see a difference about what I have said. So in the top part of the Christmas tree, I have hammering at 90 degrees, going far from the center. And in the bottom, I have take a center point and rotate my crossbeam hammer all around. So you can see the difference. For example, in one, I get more round shape. In the other one, I get more pointy shape. So in the bottom, we have the face that lays to the anvil. So you can see the difference also there. Because it's an artist project, we can change the technique we use for hammering, so we can try new things. And I think this kind of project is going to help us a lot to play a little with the material and try to find new techniques. So now we go again to the video. We're gonna take the right distance, hammer a little with the flat, and then I start to open with the crossbeam hammer. You can see I have a little angle with the hand, with the tongue. So you're gonna see the tip of the end of the tree going up. That's something important we need to keep in mind and put the hand little low. I think this view helps a lot to see that. I'm gonna hit again. Now I need to correct that problem and also the bend in the back. And I keep opening the piece. I can also make small corrections with my hand, with the hammer or with the tongue. Normally, I try to hammer always in the same way with the hammer and try to move my hand to make small corrections. I'm gonna hit again. When I have the shape, I can make it flat to clean all the work, and then I can put the texture, or I can make the hook and then put the texture. Something very important is the finger. You can see my thumb. Sometimes I put in the top of the tongue, and that's wrong. I need to work a lot on that. In this case, the tongue is a little bigger for the piece, so I need to have my hand more open that I prefer. That's why also I need to pick the tongue in a way that is maybe not the best. So now I'm working on cleaning all the face. Try to remove all the marks. And now we are gonna work in the texture. So here we can see the difference about how to hammer. I choose to hammer straight or hammer in angle. So you can see around where is the center point I have choose. We can also make a mix of these two techniques if we want. So now we are gonna make the scroll. We are gonna have now around 170 millimeters in length. So here is all the marks. You can see in the top I have hammer also like in 45 degrees to push material out in another direction. I just try to play a little and choose different ways to move the material. So I just try different things. In the bottom, you can see a hammer in another direction, so you can see the difference. So now I have choose to put the texture here. And of course, we can choose one of the two faces, depending of how we want to end the project. So now we are gonna clean the surface. We have made the texture, and now we want to bend the bar and make the scroll. So we go again to the video. I need to choose the right angle to put the texture. Now I take the other side. I always try to hammer very light, and I hold my hammer very, very light. Then I correct a little. And now I'm gonna make the bend. You're gonna hit again and make the bend in the end. Make the scroll first. You can see here I hammer super light, trying to go very slow to make all the details. If I need to take many hits, I'm gonna go that way. I have quenched the end, and now I'm gonna use the horn to make the bend. I can also choose make it in the face, but in this case, this anvil has a very sharp face, sharp corner, so I need to work very carefully in the end. I have quenched again the scroll, and I go very slowly. As you can see, I have quenched too much, so I cannot bend the end. So I need to hit it again. And I go very, very light and very carefully, step by step, bending where I can see is little straight. Yeah, now I need to correct a little because I have bent too much. One more time. Now I'm gonna use the horn in an angle because this horn is not small enough. But if I take from like 45 degrees, I can have the right angle I need to, or radius to make the piece. So now I need to cut it. So we are gonna go here again. So I have bent. I have choose 90 degrees, but was too much for the length I have choose. So now I have cooled the end and used the horn to make the delicate bending. I'm also making the hook. The next step is gonna cut the end. And right now I'm gonna choose to put the cutting tool. We want to remove the tool when we don't need it and put it again when we need it. So yeah, we're gonna go just again. Every time I'm gonna choose to have the tools in the right position. So now I put the cutting tool, and I'm gonna also put the hammer in the way that I have picked, and it's ready to use. I have hammer very light. I need to hammer all the way around. And when I have the mark, I can go stronger. Otherwise, I have the risk to miss the line and make a problem or a bad cut. Once I'm close to cut the whole piece, I'm gonna stop, pick a tongue, and break the piece. So in that way, I prevent the piece to fly away from me. I also put the hot piece where the fire is, so if anyone comes and doesn't know that the piece is hot, it's also safe. And as you can see, I removed the tool because I don't need it anymore. I'm gonna make small corrections. And now I want to put some oil to finish the product. So that's gonna be our last step. We're gonna go again to the video. I'm gonna take all the tools out because I don't need it anymore and I don't want it in the anvil. I'm gonna also clean the anvil, take the brush, and take out all the scale. Then I need to wait until the piece has the right heat, around 200, 300 degrees, and I'm gonna put on the oil. As you can see, was too hot, so the oil is not gonna be perfect. I try to clean a little more. Also, it's gonna help to have the oil in all the surface. And if I get some scale, it's gonna go out and maybe I'm gonna get more nice surface. And now I need to let it cool slowly. And we are gonna have a close view of the Christmas tree. We are gonna see some gray spots, and that's because it was too hot, so the oil couldn't get through all the piece very nice. So all the gray spot we see here is because it was too hot. In this case, I have choose to get the texture from the other side, on the back side. But if we go to the presentation here, you can see I have choose also the other side. In the first Christmas tree, we can see I have choose a very straight line and the texture with the crosspin hammer. But in the center, I have choose to make the texture with the ball peen hammer. We can also choose that. Or in the last one, I have choose to make an S shape with the Christmas tree and then put the texture. So we can also play a lot with the shapes. And that's something I think is very important. Play with the material, try different things, try to hammer in different ways and try to create something new. These basic techniques are gonna help us a lot to don't be worried about making a mistake. As I have learned from my wife, a defect is an effect. You can create things that in other cases is gonna be a problem, but you can use it to create something unique. Normally, we want to hammer super clean and make the surface very flat, but we can also make the opposite, try to get a new texture, try to bend the material and get something unique. So choose that way in this project and try to make your own design. The same with the hook. So I want to talk something now about the steps. Why I have choose this step and not another step? For example, I can use to I can also open first the base and then make the square point and the round point and the hook. But why I have choose these ones? First, because when I make the square point and the round point, I can choose how long the piece is. So when I open the base, I already have enough material and I already have the right length. So when I cut the piece, it's just in the right length. But if I choose another step, maybe it's going to be very difficult to control how much material I have or how long is going to be the piece at the end. So maybe I need to make many tries to have the right amount of material I need. Or maybe I'm going to have a problem with the tools I have. For example, in this case, the outside of the Christmas tree is round. So if I need to correct something and I need to use the flat face of the anvil, I'm going to have a problem because I'm going to make something that I wanted round. I'm going to make it straight. So then I need to work extra in correct that shape. So in the next video, I need to use the horn in some points to correct the piece. I need to solve some problems I'm going to have through the process. I'm not going to make the whole tree, but I'm going to make the main steps, and you're going to see how I can hold some material in the end so I can make it longer if I need it, but it's very difficult to control how much material I have. So 2 seconds. I'm gonna make the other. Now. And I can share now the video. So the same, I'm gonna make the square point. But I'm not gonna make it longer. I'm just gonna hold all the material in the end. And I go just directly through, use the crossbeam hammer to open the tree. Yes. I hammer flat first. And now I'm gonna use the crossbeam hammer. Now I'm gonna also use the technique I have talked about, rotating the piece and the hammer to make it round. And now I start to rotate. And the other side. As you can see, I leave a lot of material in the end of the piece. And you can see here the angle I have with the anvil and the piece is very wrong, too high. That could be because the anvil is too low or my hand is too high. Now I cannot make the square point longer in the flat of the anvil, so I need to use the horn to straighten all the material I have left there. That way I can control the round shape. The problem is every time I turn, I have a different shape in the horn, so it's very difficult to control and be more precise. And now I need to work again, opening that area. So choosing these steps, I need to work again in many of the parts of the Christmas tree because I couldn't at the beginning. And it's more difficult to follow steps in this way. You're gonna see me also many times like there, trying to choose the flat face of the anvil, but I can't because I'm gonna deform the piece. So I need to keep working in the horn. Only when I have enough material in the end, I can choose to hammer a little in the flat surface. Like there. But you can see the finish of the product is not the best. Following the other steps, I can have a nice radius through all the Christmas tree. In this case, it's more difficult to get the right amount. Now I want to talk about this technique. I use a lot with knife, but you can use this technique to make the alignment better. Because when I was hammering in this way, sorry, 2 seconds. When I was hammering, I had the problem that the piece was bending in one direction more than another direction. So I can hammer in this way with the anvil to get the alignment right, because the piece is too thin, so I'm not able to hammer on the piece. And also I cannot hammer on the anvil because I'm gonna bend the piece in the wrong direction. So I'm gonna choose to have the piece outside the anvil and use the whole material to make the right alignment. So now I want to talk about level 2 and level 3. What are gonna be my objectives if I am in this level and I want to use this project? I want to save material and I want to save time. So instead of use a long bar, I'm gonna cut the material in the right dimensions, the 100 millimeters or 4-inch, and I'm gonna use many pieces at the same time. And I'm gonna make the same step in each piece. When I finish with the first step, I'm gonna go for the second one, third one, and through all the steps. In that way, I'm gonna concentrate and focus in that step, trying to make it better and make it faster. In that way, I'm gonna practice a lot, but I'm gonna save time, because otherwise, if I make one by one, I'm gonna lose more time waiting than if I make a line, for example, with 5. I want to challenge myself. I want to say, okay, how many Christmas tree I can make at the same time? Maybe 3, maybe 5, maybe 10. So in that way, I push some pressure on me, and I also gonna work in planning, because if I choose to make 10 at the same time, maybe I need to take some out of the forge because the material is gonna be too thin, and maybe it's gonna burn. So I need to control and put a lot of thinking on how I'm gonna work with that. I also want to work in performance. I want to make better, save time, try to think what is the next step and try to aim to that. And also, I need to think in production volume, because I want to make some money. Maybe I want to make money for Christmas, make some presents. So I need to work in production. So that's the end of the presentation. If someone has questions, please, I'm very welcome.